Welcome to the Corporate Detox Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda McWhorter. I'm a corporate dropout, recovering people pleaser and perfectionist turned burnout recovery coach. If you are sick of the corporate roller coaster ride and ready to step into a life you love, this is the podcast for you. Hey there, welcome back to the Corporate Detox Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda McWhorter. And today's episode is going to be so much fun. It is going to be something, honestly, that I haven't brought you before. Typically, I give you perspectives of other women with their corporate detox journey. And today, I am thrilled to be joined by a former coworker of mine, Leanne Steiff. Leanne and I work together in the corporate world, and our conversation today is going to be amazing. We're going to talk about our time together, Leanne's own corporate detox story, and you're going to see a different side of me come out in this conversation. Because the time period that we're going to talk about is when I was a human resources manager, and really at that time, my goal was to be able to build teams and retain them. So with that, I want to tell you a little bit about Leanne. So after Leanne left the corporate world, she has become a realtor, and she is a rock star realtor in the Central Ohio area for Emerge Real Estate. All of her information will be dropped in the show notes, but in the meantime, I want to catch you up on this story. So let's dig in. Okay, Leanne, I am so excited to be here and have you on the podcast. Number one, Leanne and I go way back. So we worked at the same company together in our corporate days. And I have yet to do an interview with somebody from that I was coworkers with. And I'm so excited because I almost feel like this could be a whole series of people that come on and tell their story. But thank you for giving me the time to do this today. And I can't wait to see where this leads us.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I guess I kind of think it's just going to be us talking about old times.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So Leanne and I, we live a couple hours away from each other, got together for coffee a few weeks ago, and it was like old times again. And this podcast episode is one of the products of that, quite honestly. So I'm just super happy to have this conversation with you. And so for everyone listening that doesn't already know, I have a retail background. So I worked in grocery retail. Leanne did as well. And with that, Leanne, I'm going to have you tell us about your corporate detox journey.
So I loved what I did for many, many years. I loved the people I worked with. I loved the company I worked for. I loved everything about it. I had been through some traumatic things in my life, one being a flood where I lost everything I owned, and my company was 100% there behind me. To me, I felt at that point in my career that I was an important part of what they were doing. The shift changed about 2015. We saw a lot of the upper management retire, and the new management coming in changed the whole landscape of everything. And I felt like at that point, that's when my life changed. And you and I talked about that over coffee. I think we actually both felt it at the same time. Ironically, I still drank the Kool-Aid. I still had in my mind thought that I was an important part of what they did. And my very last year, and I gave it 12 months of fighting tooth and nail to prove to myself that I was still that important part of their journey. that I woke up one day and said, I'm done. And ironically, you were my HR at the time.
I
And
was.
you were one of those phone calls, and you were still drinking the Kool-Aid as well. And, gave me the pep talk. Leanne, you're important. We need you. Here's what we're going to do. And, and I said, okay, let me rethink this. Of course, as women, we put everything on our shoulders and we feel like we have to keep everything running smoothly. And the moment, I can tell you exactly the moment, we were doing a grand opening for my store. I'd only been in this store for 2 years. And the president, who I had met numerous times, said my name wrong. Seems like a very minute point to be the stick that broke my back at that point. But to me, that was everything. How could somebody that knew me, somebody that had been around me, somebody that I was supposed to respect, completely say my name wrong when 15 minutes earlier, he had confirmed how to say it correctly? So that was kind of the.
Wait, I'm going to stop you for a minute. So I want to set the stage because I can see this happening in my head. Obviously, I was there for this, but so for anyone that has not had any retail experience, every time a store is like remodeled, at least for the company that we worked in, they would throw together this grand reopening. So it was a celebration to bring in people in the community. I like to call it the dog and pony show because they would bring up in everybody from the corporate office. And it was definitely a show. The whole gist of a grand reopening is supposed to be to thank the customers and thank the employees for working and shopping in a mess, essentially, and to celebrate what you're getting. And the store leader is a huge part of that. Like the store leader honestly lives in hell for this remodel period. And they're put through so much. So for somebody that is leading, your fearless leader, essentially, right? Like he was our leader at the time, to come in and then just totally botch your name.
It just was the end for me. So let me go back through the 6 or 7 months of the remodel. Not only is my store completely torn up, I live 1.4 miles from this location, which was the closest I had ever been. So I felt like I never left the store because literally at night I can see the Kroger sign from my back porch.
Yeah.
So it felt like I never left. I lost employees during that time that I felt were valued employees, due to retirement and whatnot. As you know, our district manager, who at that point, was somebody that had promoted me throughout my entire career with this company, and somebody that I respected, even in my most angriest moments at him, I still respected him. He was no longer my boss. So I was getting used to somebody different that was not the same relationship level. I could no longer sit down in his office and speak openly about what I was going through, how I felt, what I was struggling with, or what was going on in his life or my kids' life.
Yeah.
It just wasn't the same. So there were a lot of things that played into it, that I just realized. I woke up and realized that this company was going to go on with or without me. So during my last 2 months, my blood pressure was triple digits, top and bottom. My health was horrible. I had always been somebody who had taken pride in going to the gym and eating, and none of that was happening. I mean, I was living and eating this remodel and wearing everything on my shoulders, everything that was wrong. And I just, when I felt that there was nothing I could do that was right, it was time for me to go. And the moment that I knew that it was right was when I was not afraid to leave. I had always been afraid to leave. I'd had that conversation with you. I'd had that conversation with other people that we were close to. And, you know, my mom gave me advice once. You'll know when it's right. You will feel it in your soul. And that day that I gave notice, I knew it. It was right. And I have no regrets. I miss the company I once worked for. I miss the people even more. But I have no regrets of sending my resignation and saying, this is it, I'm done. Best decision I ever made.
I remember that day. I didn't feel like it was the best decision that day, because then I had to replace the store leader.
Right.
So let's go back. You brought up drinking the Kool-Aid, and I think I've mentioned that a few times on here before. I think probably more in my social posts, but for anyone that's in the corporate environment, especially if that's all you've ever known.
Yep.
As you climb the ladder, as you get exposed to different things, you drink the Kool-Aid, so to speak, right? Like, you buy into all of this stuff and you lose sight of everything else. And for me, like, that truly was where I was at. Like, I wasn't to the point you were yet, right? Like, I just wasn't. It took me a few more years to get there. But it's like, it's all consuming.
So if you think back before we were in the positions that we were in when I made this decision, and you were a store leader and I was a coordinator, you know, actually you were pregnant with your son. Mm-hmm. And we had these conversations about, why can people not see what we see? Because at that point, we both loved what we did.
Yeah.
And we both
I never thought I would leave there.
Me either. I thought I would die with that company.
Yep.
I almost did at home, I think, but yeah, I thought I would never leave. That's why when I woke up that day and that was the end, I knew, like, that was it. Like I said, I felt it in my soul. Mm-hmm. It was a decision I needed to make. And you just can't look back.
Yeah. A similar experience for me. Mine was 3 years later, essentially. And it was the same thing, right? Like, all these things start adding up and your mind starts going, but like, what if, right? And then one thing happens and yep, in your heart and your soul, that this is not where you're meant to be long-term.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that hit that stage and still don't leave.
You know, something else what we recently talked about, life is short. You do not know what tomorrow brings. And I think out of anything that I can look back now, I am grateful that I am so happy with the decisions I have made where I'm at now, that, you know, think about it. If something happened to you tomorrow, they're going to replace you the day after. You cannot be replaced in your family's life. You cannot be replaced in your friend's life. You cannot be replaced in your children's lives. So, you know, why do we dedicate so much to a company that would not do the same for us?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it took us a long time to see that. You know, you were talking about the district manager that you respected, and, you know, I had the same exact feelings. Like, I was crushed. when he was moved to a different district at a different set of stores. We learned a lot of that from him too, right? Like we truly did. And a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of the corporate Kool-Aid, we bought into, we were so loyal to him that we wanted the best grocery store experience for our customers and our community. Like I think about you living a mile and a half from the store. Honestly, that was strategic in the very beginning. It was not a good decision. Like that was one lesson I learned. Not a good decision if you're going to go through a remodel. But like in our minds at the time, it was like, she's already part of this community. Like what better experience for customers than to know their store leader, to be able to have a conversation with her. And I'm going down a rabbit hole with, the reasons for decisions, but like I think of for that mentor of ours, he would eat, sleep, and breathe that company. And it wasn't until the very end when he retired that, he left with, he left abruptly, left the company abruptly, and his health was not good after that.
Right.
And I know you and I have talked about that. Life is too short. Like I think of people that we know that we've worked with that have lost family members, spouses, or have retired then passed away like real suddenly after that. Like I don't want that life.
Right. When like I said, I can pinpoint exactly when I became an employee of this company, not a valued member of the family of this company. And it really, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. I understand that. I get that. It's hard. Every day it is a battle to be my own boss. I always joke, and I think I told you this when you started your company. I got good news for you. You're your own boss. I got bad news for you. You're your own boss. Yeah. So, but, at one point, there are companies out there, I think, that do still value their people.
Oh, yeah.
But ours no longer did. So, could I go back to that setting? I could not go back to corporate at all.
No,
I can't
either.
Not after doing what I do now and being on my own and making my own decisions. But I just hope everybody else can truly feel that moment when it's time to let go and actually have the courage to do it.
Yeah, having the courage is like the biggest thing, because fear will keep you stuck for a really long time. And especially in the environment that we were in, Leanne, I did another podcast interview this morning. And when I said, like, I worked 65, 75-hour weeks, like that was normal. And her eyes about popped out of her head when she heard me say that. But it was true, right? Like we didn't know what else was out there because we were always on, always working, like so consumed in this one environment that for the people that are listening, maybe you've had that little inkling, right? That it's time to look for something else. Like just know the sky is the limit. There is so much out there, especially now post-COVID, with opportunities.
Well, and sometimes you have to create your own opportunity.
Yep.
I remember when I first started working, I'm older than you, just a little, but when I first started working, that's what you did. You went to college, you got out of college, and you went and got a job. And it was just that. Now, back then, it was Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. That's what you work. In our life in retail, it was, like you said, 60, 70 hours. It was never Monday through Friday. I mean, how many times did we get a phone call at 2 or 3 in the morning that either you had to drive to my side of the district because there was a power outage, or I had to drive to your side of the district because there was a power outage? I never understood that, though. Why was the district team the ones called in the middle of the night to come? Like,
That
what?
stopped. That stopped when they started cutting the district team.
Yeah, true. But we did it. It was just what we did. Again, I don't want to completely bash the company we work for, because there were a lot of great things. There were a lot. I had my flood. I'll tell you, Amanda, they were there 110% for me.
Yeah.
And I was very grateful for the things that they did for me. But that's not that company anymore.
Yep. Yeah.
And
I agree.
That's
I
why
agree. That company afforded me a lot of things, quite honestly, and making the money that I did and being able to have the savings that I did allowed me to be able to leave and start my own business.
Same here.
And I'll be forever grateful for that.
Yeah.
There are people that are listening that are in that spot.
Sometimes you don't know what you want to do, no matter what age you are. So let's think. 17 was when I left, 2017. So I was 50 years old. Left the only thing I really knew. Left a security blanket. Like you said, we made great money. And I left with no idea what I was going to do. No plan whatsoever. And it was the scariest and best decision that I've ever made. So, but I had to believe in myself. And that was something that was taken from me my last year.
Yeah.
The previous boss that we talked about, he was my number one cheerleader.
Mm-hmm.
He was, I mean, it was nothing for a Sunday 9 p.m., 10 p.m. phone call to pump me up for the week. Hey, this is what you got to do. This is what I need from you. Da, 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 da. Okay, got it. I'm ready to go. When that stopped and that new person became somebody who coached, teached, and trained differently, I no longer felt valued.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of that, truly, I feel, and you and I talked about this, came with that change in upper management, right? Like, we can go back to when the pendulum started swinging, right? And that change started taking place. And it just rolled downhill from there.
Right. Sorry.
You're fine. So what would be your biggest piece of advice?
Oh, I wrote that down.
For the person that's listening today that might have the same experiences, or maybe like they're listening to this and they're like, this is hitting home.
You know you better than anybody. So listen to your heart, listen to your gut instinct, and listen to your head. Because nobody can tell you how you feel but you.
I love it. And I'm going to add to that, just because of the dynamic of the two of us on here today. When you turn in your resignation and the HR person's trying to talk you out of it, remember who you are and remember what your feelings are. Because that's their job, quite honestly. Like, Leanne and I had this conversation. I tried to talk her out of quitting at that point multiple times.
Actually, if you think about it, so the week before I officially truly quit, I had turned in my resignation, and you called me and talked me out of it. And so I did give it, well, was it a week? It might have been 2 weeks, but And you did talk me out of it, which was exactly what you were supposed to do, from your point of view. And you have to, people, anybody listening to this, you have to realize this is personal. This is you. This is your life. I kept thinking about, well, what's going to happen to this? What's going to happen to this person? What's going to happen to this position? What's going to happen to these 3 things that I do? They replaced me in a matter of hours. Literally. Within hours of giving my resignation, they told me who I was going to be training, walking through my store, introducing them to everybody as my replacement. Within hours. At that point, I knew I had made the right decision.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely.
If you're thinking about leaving the corporate world, there is obviously a reason behind that, and you have got to follow that gut instinct, how you feel about that. Believe in what you feel. It is important.
I say to people now, like, what's the worst that can happen? You have to go back.
Right.
That's truly the worst that's going to happen. So a lot of people will be like, I don't know. I can't lose the salary. I don't want to lose my car, my house. They go down this thing. And it's like, okay, the reality is that's most likely not going to happen. Like, the worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to go get another corporate job or work for someone else.
Right. True.
So I want to throw something else in there. Sometimes when you put in a resignation, there's a lot of pressure to stay from all levels. And you might have got that, maybe not. Like, you might have got that from other people. So I think about, especially like in the industry that we were in, like, you hold different positions in different districts, you work for different people, right? Like, different people in the division office. I know for me, when I put in my resignation, it was like, people like, whoa, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What are you doing? Do you know what you're doing? Are you sure you want to do this? And you have to stay strong in your power.
I had several people that I had previously worked for throughout the years, because obviously in our world, news travels fast.
Real fast.
Yeah, like literally within hours, everybody knew what was going on. So, I had several people. Are you sure that where are you going? What are you going to do? And I think what concerned people, everyone else other than me, was, I don't know. That literally was my answer. I don't know. I have no clue. And they're like, you're quitting this job and you don't. I said, I can't do this anymore. Like I said, I felt it from my head to my toes, in my soul, in my head, in my heart. I was done, checked out, turned off the light, locked the door, left the keys, done. The hardest part was leaving my team, but they understood.
Mm-hmm. I feel like they're the most understanding.
Because they see what we go through. They see, your team will always see what you go through before you.
Yeah. That was like, I think it was the hardest group to tell and the easiest group to tell, in the fact that they were like, good for you.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Good for you. So let's talk about burnout for a little bit. Okay, so obviously your last however long during that remodel, you said like your health just like was a dumpster fire at that point.
It was horrible. I ate, slept, and drank the remodel. I felt responsible for every part of it. One, we were an outer lying store, kind of like when you went through yours. You were outside of the middle of the district. So people didn't come to visit as often. So I felt like I wore every hat possible. And it just consumed me. Being in a small town, yes, I was part of this community. Yes, people could come talk to me. They were not happy that item A used to be in aisle 1, and now item A is in aisle 37, and aisle 37 isn't labeled. So you can't tell them it's in aisle 37. So yeah, my health went downhill, my state of mind, my sleep, my eat. I just felt like I'm pretty sure there might have been a day or two I might have been in the same clothes because I don't think I ever left. So yeah, I just stopped taking care of myself because I had to take care of everybody else.
Yeah. About how long do you think, like, after you left, did it take you to like start feeling normal again?
That's interesting. So the next day, I did not set my alarm for the first time in 20 years. And I think that I slept until 1:00 in the afternoon. And never in my life have I ever slept till 1:00 in the afternoon, except for when I was sick, which is not very often. The next couple of weeks, I did nothing in my normal routine. I kind of did whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. My kids, one of which was living with me, one which was not, because they're adults, was worried because I kind of was like, had no routine, no plan, no calendar, nothing, because I said for 30 days, I'm just going to do whatever. I was grateful that I actually had saved. Well, I think it's more that I worked too much to really spend what I was making. So I had saved. So technically, I didn't have to work for almost 11 months. That's not me. So the first 30 days, I just kind of was like in a fog. I had dinner with, like, I think for the first 2 weeks, I had dinner out every night with people that were friends that I hadn't seen forever. So that was really nice. Then at the end of the 30 days, I went on a vacation out of the country with 24 of my friends, and it was fabulous. And then I came back and said, okay, it's time to be an adult and figure out what I'm going to do. So when did I, probably about 5 weeks, it took me to really kind of realize that I had to make some decisions and I had to get back into a routine of some sort. But those first 5 weeks, they were, I don't even know that I completely remember them that well. They were kind of a fog.
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I feel like the first month for me was kind of a fog, but it was the holidays too. So I was really happy to like just have December to enjoy, because I really, the only time I've ever been able to enjoy like Thanksgiving even was when I had my son when I was on maternity leave. But then I went right back to work right before Christmas. So I didn't ever really get to enjoy like the holidays. So that was really nice. But it took me like a few months really into that not being in the corporate space to realize that I was burnout.
Right.
Because I didn't know, like, that wasn't something we talked about.
So I gave notice on October 13th, and I gave 3 weeks notice. And y'all gave me 3 days notice and said, you got 3 days. So, which was fine, because technically I had enough vacation saved up. I didn't have to worry about that either. But so mine in October, I had all of October, November, and December that I really didn't do. I didn't really work. Like you said, I enjoyed the holidays for the first time. There was no store walks on Christmas Day, and no dealing with kicking customers out at 6 p.m. on Thanksgiving. And so
yeah. So you bring up 3 weeks notice. And I know you and I talked about this over coffee. But do you know that so the interview that I did this morning, same thing, female, she gave 5 weeks notice. Like, I just keep adding to this list of like women that give more than 2 weeks notice because like we want to make sure things are right when we leave.
That was exactly why I felt like it was going to take that much time, even though I had seen it in the past, but I felt like I was leaving on good terms. At least I thought at the time. I was leaving on good terms. I wanted to make sure everything was in order and everybody knew what their role was and all of that. And it didn't matter because everything I'd been kind of put in place disappeared with the next person that my seat, which was not a female.
Yeah. Oh God, I remember that. Okay, so let's talk about your path after the corporate world.
Well, if you would have told me, what is it, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23. So I've been gone. Wow. It'll be 6 years this October. I did not realize it had been that long. If you would have told me 6 or 7 years ago that I would have gotten my real estate license and started selling real estate and been as successful entrepreneur as I have been these last couple of years, I would have laughed in your face. Never in a million years did I think I would be doing what I'm doing now. And honestly, it was a kind of a joke when I was having family over, and I am blessed that both my parents are still alive. And although remarried, we still have holidays together, all as a family, which was wonderful. And over Christmas dinner, I said, get my real estate license. And I kind of like leaned back and was like waiting for like the rapid fire. And all 4 of them, to include one of my kids, said, I think that's a great idea. You'd be fabulous. And I kind of had a what? Huh? Like it was kind of like a joke. Like I just threw it out there because I'll be honest, Amanda, I had no clue what I was going to do. I had no clue, what my favorite position was when I did corporate training, when I traveled and was doing the training and training other people. So unfortunately, by the time I was leaving, that wasn't a huge thing. Companies were not investing. This is sad. Companies were not investing in training the way that they once had.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, okay, I'll sell real estate. My mind, real estate was like selling used cars. That's kind of what some people kind of classify us as, but it's the best decision. It's like I found my calling. 50 years old, who would have guessed that I would have finally found what I was meant to do? And it was because I didn't know what else to do.
So I have to tell you, I love when I'm out that way and I'm driving down the road and I see you on a billboard. I just love it. I just love it. Sometimes I'll get phone calls from Phil and he'll be like, hey, just saw another Leanne billboard. Like she has another one up. It's just hilarious. And I think that we would all agree, like, who would have thought that you would leave with no plan? I left with no plan. Like there's so many people that end up that are not the type of people that would ever do that. I mean, you and I planned everything, Leanne. Like, let's face it. Like there was so much planning that went into just our days, period. Like to make a decision like that and not to have a plan is one of the most uncomfortable things a person will ever do.
Right.
But it's the best thing.
If you remember, I have always said, I am the most spontaneously planned person you will ever meet. I love a good plan. I love to have a good plan to follow, but I still want a tad bit of room in there to be spontaneous. So having no plan, I joke and say, okay, yeah, I really wasn't worried. I was scared shitless.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a single mom. My daughter will always live with me. She's an adult with special needs. She relies on me wholeheartedly. So having no plan, yeah. To look now, which by the way, my billboard's getting changed, so you'll have to watch for it.
Good. It's like a game.
So having no plan, I don't know if what scared me more was not knowing if I was going to be able to make my house payment or put food on the table, or ironically, just not knowing what I wanted to do with the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I mean, that alone, again, 50 years old, scared to death that no clue what I wanted to do. And failure to me is not loving what I do. And I, you kind of go back and I think I loved what I did until my last year. Kool-Aid or not, you can say what you did, but we had some great times with some great people. And I loved going to work. But I love it even more now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you're right. Like this entrepreneurial journey is like not for the faint of heart. And it is like a real, like, every month it's kind of like, okay, our end's going to meet this month. And like, you know what I mean? Like, can I pay my mortgage and feel good about it? Like that's, and I think anybody that's been on that journey can agree with that. But being able to have, like, now you can make your schedule what you want it to be.
Yeah. For the most part, clients definitely dictate that sometimes, but for the most part, yes.
But you're not getting called at 2:00 in the morning.
No.
To go to a power outage anymore. And how cool is it that your kids get to watch you do that?
Yeah. I think that was the eye opener for me was so that first year, for those that don't understand, you go get your real estate license. It's the hardest test you'll ever take in your entire adult life. I mean, do you remember food safety tests? We thought those were hard. Yeah, nothing compared to real estate. You have to know things that you will never ever use in your real estate career. You just got to know them long enough. I'm a horrible test taker as it is. So you go through 4 months of classes, 5 months of classes, and then you cram for a test that is an hour and a half long. And you hope and pray with everything in your being that you pass it, because only 46% ever pass it on the first time. Well, I did. I was definitely not taking it a second time. So I made sure that I did. But, I did odd things during that. I bartended, picked up waitress shifts. Being afraid to work was never my issue. But the getting to where I finally got past that test, at the time would have been 24. My 24-year-old son looked at me. Now, we all know 24 years old, mom's the last thing that they really care about at this point in their life. He looked at me and he said, "This is you. You are back. I am finally glad to see you woke up." And it was like, huh? He said, "You have been miserable for so long now that you couldn't even see it. We all saw it." But
wow. Isn't it funny how everybody around us can see it, but we can't?
Oh, yeah.
I remember, my mom said to me basically the same thing, right? She said, "I'm happy to have you back." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, and whatever was going on, like I was laughing and, I don't want to say I didn't have a care in the world, but I wasn't consumed with like, my phone ringing off the hook and answering emails and whatever else. And I'm sure she probably said that to me at some point during my corporate career, but I didn't listen to her.
Right. Yeah. My mom used to get so upset that I would work till I was that person that would say, I'll work the holiday, you work like the morning shift, I'll work close so y'all can go with your family. Not that my family was less important. It was just one of those things that I kind of felt like I needed to do. So my mom, at the same time of being worried about how was I going to pay my house payment, at the same time she was like, oh, you don't have to work Easter. You don't have to work Thanksgiving. There's no more. I mean, I took her to walk a store with me on Christmas to do temperature checks one year. She was like, this is weird. I'm like,
Same.
yeah, I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't see what you're putting yourself through until somebody else sometimes points it out. Now, my question to you is, is this a woman thing? Like, do we wear this on our shoulders because we are women and that's what we do?
I think there are a lot of men that do the same thing. I can think of a handful that there was a gentleman that you and I both work with, and this happened after you left, but he ended up having a heart attack like at the store.
Oh,
And I mean, he was the same way. He worked all the time. And I mean, luckily for him, there was someone there who identified he was having a heart attack. The hospital was like a couple miles away, and it ended up being a widowmaker heart attack, and he survived. He ended up leaving the company after coming back from his leave, because the stress, as soon as he got back, the stress went through the roof again, right? And, I think there are a lot of men that definitely do that. But I definitely think there's something with women that there's like this people pleasing, nurturing, got to take care of everyone else type thing. And I think for us too, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but retail, especially grocery retail, at one point was like very much a man's world.
yes.
Right. So, I always loved in our district, we had a lot of women that we worked with, but that wasn't always the case. And I don't know. I think that it's, often we feel like we have something to prove.
Yeah, I would
Right.
agree.
Like
And
we still have to be able to balance being a mom and running a really good store. Because let's face it, at the time, the male district manager or multiple men district, like they don't understand in the majority of cases, like having to get your kid to school or having to, get to a baseball game or, having that responsibility to at home.
It's funny you say that because if you remember when we had coffee, I shared a story that one of our VPs came in and walked the store with me. It was unplanned. And halfway through, I looked at him and said, my daughter has her IEP program or meeting, and it was scheduled 6 months ago. And I have to leave because I have to be there. So you're either going to respect me or fire me. I'm not sure which. And a year later, when I saw this vice president who was no longer our VP, asked about my daughter.
Yeah.
That was the company I loved.
Yes.
That was the company that I would have died for. That was the company I would have retired from. Unfortunately, it's different today.
Yeah.
And you see that when you go into stores and you see different people every time you go in.
Yep. Yeah.
So.
Okay, Leanne. So share with everyone, obviously you are in real estate. Share with everyone where they can find you. If they're listening and it's an area that you serve. I don't know if I'm using the right term. Sorry, real estate's not my thing.
I can sell anywhere in the state of Ohio.
Perfect.
But I tend to stay within 90 minutes of central Ohio. So it just depends on where it's at. And if it's someplace I don't go to, I definitely have a great referral if you are looking for somebody. You can find me on Facebook at Leanne Steiff, E-merge real estate. My website is Leanne Steiff, LEANNESTEIFF .e-merge.com. And then my email obviously is the same, leanne.steiff@emerge.com. If you're looking to buy or sell, I'd love to help you. If you're looking for somebody just to tell your story to that is non-invested in who you really are, I'm here to hear that too. I get it. Sometimes you need somebody that doesn't know your story.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been so much fun. Maybe we should get like a round table, like get a bunch of us together. That would be a blast.
That would be cool.
First, we got to get this dinner together that we keep saying that we're all going to do first. But Leanne, thank you. So for everyone listening, Leanne's links will be in the notes. Check her out, especially if you are in the Central Ohio area. If you're listening to this, especially if you're someone that is in retail and you're like, oh, maybe I want to explore real estate. Like, I'm sure Leanne would love to chat with you about her experience and how it differs and the pros, the cons, everything has it, right? So, just send her an email, check her out. And Leanne, thank you. This has been so much fun.
It has been. I appreciate you making me feel comfortable talking about my situation.
I wouldn't call it a situation. Let's just call it an experience. It's a journey. It's a journey.
Well, and that's, people need to understand not to regret that journey either.
Oh God, no.
Don't regret the journey you took, because it will get you where you're going. So I never ever regret any of my past journeys.
Yeah. Everything happens for your highest good. You might not understand it at the time, but it all plays into part of your story.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. So, are you ready to start your own corporate detox journey? Well, if you are, make sure that you check out amandamcwhorter.net for different ways to work with me, as well as some freebies that could help you get started. If you're on social media, follow me at Amanda K. McWhorter on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram.